Welcome to Voices of the Completed Life podcast. My name is Lynn, Barger, Elliott, and this month we are offering a special series called Gifts, the Completed Life. Reflections on grief, unfinished business, and open windows. Today we welcome back to our conversation Mark Barger Elliott, Executive Director of the Completed Life Initiative. Welcome, Mark. We're glad to have you back.
It's wonderful to be here, Lynn. Thanks.
So this week, I did a little research on open windows. And did you know around the world, the majority of people spend most of their time indoors, between 80 to 90%. And our homes are often not a healthy place. Inside spaces can have pollutants that are several times higher than outdoors. In most cases, outside air is actually healthier than inside air. A remedy, of course, is to open our windows. I read this week how health agencies recommend we open our windows at least 10 minutes a day.
That's fascinating. I know we like to sleep with our windows open.
And we're not alone. According to the Sleep Foundation, 47% of the adults in the US sleep with their windows open.
That reminds me, remember when we lived with that German family a long time ago and like one day you weren't feeling so well and Frau Totzek, I think that was her name, would come into our room and she would say like over and over again, frische Luft, frische Luft. And that means like fresh air. And then she'd open all the windows in our room.
We thought she was a little extreme at the time, but she was actually right. And there's more. It's not just fresh air. Studies show that background noise, those sounds which enter a room when the window is open, background noise is supposed to lead to better sleep. I read that even the sounds of leaves rustling on a tree or the hum of traffic can be a gentle symphony of white noise that brings quicker and deeper sleep.
So open your windows. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And I know when you were working on the fall conference with Sarah Kiskaden-Bechtel, our Director of Public Policy and Programming, you found that idea of opening windows resonated with our keynote speaker, Amy Bloom.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. For those who might have missed it, Sarah had this incredible interview with Amy Bloom, the author of New York Times best-selling memoir that she wrote called In Love, a memoir of love and loss. And in preparation, Sarah and I, we did research into a few of the courses that Amy Bloom taught. And we discovered that she often turns to this American poet, Jane Hirshfield, for inspiration. And Hirshfield, well, she challenges writers, and I guess all of us, to open the window, in particular for writers when they write. What she says is crack it open and then open it a few inches more. Open the window to let air in, to let the outside world in, to connect with the outside world, rather than, she says, shutting yourself off.
Didn't Hirshfield also write a poem about an open window?
Yeah, she did, and I'd love to read it if that's okay.
Sure, please do.
It's called I Open the Windows. What I wanted wasn't to let in the wetness that can be mopped, nor the cold. There are blankets. What I wanted was the siren, the thunder, the neighbor, the fireworks, the dog bark. Which of them didn't matter?
Her poem, that makes me think of what would happen in my house when I was a child and the storm was coming. All the other moms told kids to close their bedroom windows so the rain wouldn't get the floor wet or the
Hmm.
wind wouldn't blow papers off their desks. But my mom ran around the house opening windows. She wanted the fresh air and that scent that comes after a storm. She wanted that to enter into our house.
I mean, who cares about wet floorboards or bills scattered around the house when you can have fresh air, right?
Right, I know. My friends, they were never sure what to do. They'd never seen anything like it. But for Hirshfield, I think what she's saying or even teaching is that rain and cool air are givens. That's a baseline. There's more that she wants that window to bring her. It's almost that open window is a conduit. It brings you to life. It connects you with a whole new world.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's like Hirschfield reminds us we have a choice. Do we seek comfort and maybe intentional solitude by closing ourselves off from the landscape we find ourselves in? Or do we open ourselves not just to the fresh air and natural light, but how do you call it? A symphony that appears through an open window, or as Hirschfield puts it, the siren, the thunder, the neighbor, the fireworks, the dog bark.
Her description also makes me think of smells that come through an open window, like
Hmm.
the scent of a lilac bush or the aromas from a neighbor's grill.
Yeah, I mean, an open window can bring you to life, but also maybe back to life.
Yeah, I remember in the interview with Amy Bloom, she said after the death of her husband, all she wanted to do was crawl into a bed and stay under those covers. But then life happened and she had to open her windows because there was a pandemic and her daughter's family needed her. They moved into her home and soon her life was open to the sight of half-eaten mac and cheese bowls in the sink, goodnight hugs from our
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren, and the sound of multiple Zoom meetings happening all at once. It reminds me of what you brought up last week, Mark. Could this be what Aristotle called complete moments inside of a complete life?
Hmm. That's an interesting idea. I mean, I think that's right. The gift of an open window, or or maybe shall I say, when we choose to open a window in our lives, it can help us to perhaps consider what is incomplete in our lives and open ourselves to these complete moments.
Hmm. I'm remembering when we first talked about Hirschfield's poem, you mentioned how you were intrigued that it had no punctuation at the end. There's no period, no semicolon, no comma. That makes me wonder whether that's her way of telling us our story is not yet complete, that we can make choices to open a window, to bring ourselves to life and back to life. And that is perhaps the gift of the opened window.
Hmm. Indeed.
Thank you, Mark, and to our listeners for joining us for the Gifts of the Completed Life, a special series of voices of the completed life. To listen to the full interview of Amy Bloom, please go to the Events tab on the homepage of completedlife.org and scroll down to the 4th Annual Fall Conference. On that same website, you can also find the episodes of Voices of the Completed Life by going to the Education tab.